Hi, welcome to Pamela Price Unfiltered. I'm Pamela Price, your host, and this is the place and the space for real talk. This podcast is all about raw, unfiltered conversations about law, politics, culture, education, systemic racism, and current events shaping our world. We'll go beyond the headlines to dive deep into how some of our most pressing issues are impacting real people, real families, and our community. My goal is to help you navigate the complexities of today's world. Each episode will tackle an issue, breaking it down in a way that's honest, informative, and actionable. We'll hear from community leaders, lawyers, educators, healers, and everyday people on the front lines of change. For those tuning in for the first time, I'm Pamela Price, a longtime attorney, political activist, and champion for justice. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel and to my Substack channel to get the weekly word on Pamela Price Unfiltered. Your support keeps the conversation raw and unfiltered. And you can listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Welcome to the show. Let's talk about it. Welcome back to Pamela Price Unfiltered, where we have real conversations with everyday people on the front lines of change, those who are doing the hard work to bring healing and justice to our communities. Today's episode is a very powerful one and deeply personal. My guest is Angelique Paige, the founder of the Vernon Eddins Jr. Foundation and the executive director, a nonprofit born out of unimaginable loss, the tragic loss of her son, and fueled by an unwavering commitment to protect and uplift young people. Angelique founded the Vernon Edins Jr. Foundation in honor of her beloved son, Vernon Edins Jr., who was tragically shot and killed on the steps of his junior high school when he was only 14 years old in 2007. Rather than be consumed by her grief, Angelique chose to transform her pain into purpose. Through her work, she now stands at the forefront of anti bullying and youth violence prevention efforts. The Vernon Edins Jr. Foundation focuses on school based bullying awareness, conflict resolution, and communication workshops, bringing critical tools into classrooms to help students navigate harm, avoid violence, and build empathy. The organization's mission is to shine a light on bullying through prevention and intervention. Angelique's mission is rooted in love and the compassion of a mother to ensure that no other mother has to endure the kind of loss that she has. Angelique Paige's voice is a reminder that behind every statistic is a family, a future, a dream, and a fight worth having to save our kids. Angelique, welcome to Pamela Price Unfiltered.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Pam. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for making the time to come and share your story with us and talk about the important issues that impact young people today, now, then, and even now, so much. So, your foundation has been leading workshops on bullying prevention
Yeah.
and conflict resolution. Can you talk us through what some of those workshops look like and what makes them so special?
Okay. So what that looks like, what the workshops look like is we're building helping build friendships, empathy. We do within children so that once they get older, they won't have the mindset to be violent to one another or cause harm. Okay. Bully or just, teasing, how kids are, just make another person feel uncomfortable.
Right.
Okay, and so what the workshops consist of is role playing, like we do scenarios where kids get to engage and interact and work through a tough situation, problem solving, basically.
Building communication skills
Building
as well.
communication, yes, very much so.
Yes. Yes. So, why is it critical, in your view, that we reach young people early? And what tools are most successful in helping young people figure out how to resolve their conflicts and de escalate?
Well, again, and I'll keep iterating the same thing, saying that they're very impressionable when they're young. And that's where you can teach them to be kind, to build friendships, communication skills. All that comes into factor at a very impressionable age when they're anywhere from five to, I would say 5 to 15.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Okay. So, what kind of support? I mean, you've worked directly with students, with parents, and educators and
Yeah,
administrators.
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that work. How has that been?
It's very rewarding. You Each day is a journey. Each day, um, you never know what a day will consist of, because each individual child is different. They have different needs. So, and then parents as well. But I seem to get along I'm a people person, so I seem to get along pretty well with the parents. I actually, before I started the organization, I was a family engagement counselor, not counselor, I'm sorry, advocate, and I would bring all the parents together, to different events we would schedule, for parents to come to meetings. I work for an organization called, I'm sorry, called the Village Method. And I was, yeah, and I'm so sorry, I get nervous. I was I took lead on bringing families together.
Excellent. So, you're often called to speak and involved in emotionally charged situations where people are hurting and there may be conflicts. So, what keeps you grounded in this work, and how do you measure success beyond the headlines or the policy wins?
What keeps me grounded is just knowing that, after the loss of my son, that I'm, a voice. I'm his voice out in the community, helping parents to identify, report, and prevent bullying, violence amongst our children. So that's very rewarding for me, knowing that, I'm fighting against bullying and trying to ensure that what happened to my son doesn't happen to anyone else's child. And the second part again, can
Mhm.
you repeat the second?
What do you how do you measure success beyond, the headlines or the policy wins?
Just as long as, like I said, no other child has to go through what Vernon went through. That's the success for me.
Mhm. So I know from my representing the other families that their children were with, some of them were with Vernon when he was killed, and many of them knew him, and all of the kids were impacted deeply by what happened to your son. And I know that the healing from the loss of one life tragically in the way that Vernon died has a tremendous impact on the whole community. How did you feel supported, or did you feel supported by the community, in the aftermath of Vernon's murder?
Honestly, I did not feel supported. That was before Black Lives Matter. That was before a lot of other high profile, cases, tragedies happened. And so I really did not feel supported by the community because the community that we lived in, was primarily, the race of people that had committed the crime towards my son. So I felt I was a little paranoid. I just felt like, I need to get up out of here. Maybe I didn't take the time to receive the support from the community. Just sometimes it's just misunderstanding, it's communication. But like I said, I got up and I moved away. So with that community, I left. So I really didn't, I can't fairly say that they didn't support me because I wasn't there.
Mhm.
And that's why I want to be a community supporter myself, because it's
Right.
needed.
Mhm.
And as far as
Right.
with his friends and everything, um, we kept in touch for a while, but it was so traumatic. It was so traumatic that it was, I guess, hard for them to keep a relationship with me. They didn't know what to say, what to do. Yeah, and vice versa.
Right. It traumatizes everyone.
Yes, it was very traumatic.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that I know that our systems need to recognize, and our community needs to recognize, that this is when something like that happens, it's not just happening to one person in the community or one family. It
Correct.
really impacts everyone. I
It,
mean, all of the friends, all of the families, everyone who knew about what happened to Vernon was totally traumatized, right? And fearful.
I just met a
Uh,
young man today at the grocery store, and he was telling me about what it is that he does. And I said, "Well, let me tell you what I do." And he said, "Oh, wow, you're Vernon's mom," and I get that a lot. His murder really impacted a lot of people, and they remember what happened. And can I say this, Pamela? A lot of people say, "Well, why do you start with bullying because your son was murdered?" But that's where it initiated, you know, and that's why our organization goes into the schools and churches and have community engagements to spread awareness, and so that it doesn't go that far, you know.
right,
Yeah, so it's really big for me. The prevention part is really big for me.
right. And intervention.
Intervention, yes, of course. But
Yes,
I'm just like, it's just a way around it, before it goes too far.
right. Exactly. Yeah. One of the themes that I had when I was in the district attorney's office was that it's not enough for us to keep pulling people out of the river. We have to go upstream and find out why they keep falling in.
I
And
like
that
that.
came from Bishop Desmond Tutu. And I tried to pass that lesson on to people that when you see folks at the point that we see them at their worst moment, uh, there's a lot of stuff that happened before that. And if we can be as proactive in intervention,
Yeah,
then we can prevent a lot of it for sure.
for sure.
That's public safety to me. Yeah,
That's public safety.
that's public safety. So tell us, you're involved in a movie about Vernon's life, and you've told me that I'm in the movie.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
tell my audience what's the movie about and how'd you get into that and what's happening with that?
Okay, so I got into the movie. I met the producer, directors, a great cast. The movie is called Run, and it's the Vernon Edins Jr. story. And I had a friend, and everyone knows I'm very passionate about anti-bullying and about what happened to my son, and so intervention, prevention, intervention. So I had a friend that I went to school with as a junior high schooler, and he said, "You know what, Angelique? I think it would be helpful for you if you told your son's story in the film, and I know a guy that could help you with it because he did another movie called She's Not Mine." And so I said, "Okay, let's check it out." And so he said, "Okay," and he introduced him to the guy. His name is Solomon, Gabriel Solomon, and he said, "I'll call you back in a few months so we can get this started." And I'm like, "Oh, I heard that before." Okay, and so I heard that before. So but I didn't, I was being, optimistic and stuff. So I said, I'll wait and see." And so he sure enough called back, and he
Mhm.
said, "Tell me about what happened to your son, and I'm going to put a script together, and let me know if you agree with it." So I'll say this. I don't want to go on and on, but I'll say that it's true events. But you do a film, some things are not actual and factual because it's kind of hard. And so I could not tell the other boy's story because I didn't have their permission to do so. So the story is mostly about Vernon but you'll see at the end. And then where you come in at is you are running for district attorney, because back then, remember, you were not district attorney, but you were running
Yeah.
for district attorney, and in the film. And so
Mhm.
Mrs. Price is running for district attorney, and she has a love interest and everything. And
Ooh,
um,
ooh, good.
you're, you're putting together policies like for gang intervention. And so that's where you come in at. And I'm your assistant.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I can't
They
wait to see
they they
this
pulled
movie.
me in on the film. I was improvising. I'm like, how did I get into this? I just go on set, but it's very powerful. Like I said, we have a great cast. Everybody came together. We were
Mhm.
struggling with funding and everything, and still are. And everybody came together, giving their time and energy and their professionalism and just putting this together in memory of Vernon and to raise awareness to children about bullying.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, yes. So the world is clear. In 2007, I was not running for district attorney, but I was about helping kids and
And yes, you were.
supporting families.
Yes, you were. You ended up actually helping, gave a couple of the kids jobs, the ones that were actually with my son when he was murdered, his friends,
Yeah.
helped them, yeah, by giving them jobs in your office.
Yeah.
And
We
I know
had
you did more, but I don't know if you want me to go into all that.
No, we had to take care of those kids. It
That's right.
was, I ultimately represented 12 kids, which was the most number of kids I'd represented in one case.
Hmm.
But they were all, very much impacted by what had happened to Vernon and the violence. And
Very,
certainly I'm sure
very,
that they will appreciate this movie a great deal, as will their mothers, who also did a great job of holding the district accountable, which is
that's
what,
right. That's right. That's
yeah.
what we did. Yes.
That's right. Absolutely.
And you know what
So
I say when you said that? And so at the time, it was so much more I wish I would have known to do back then. But I was just, I was grieving and I was so wounded that I didn't know. All I was thinking about was, how I'm going to make it through this. Am I going to
right.
live to see another day? My heart was so
Mhm.
broken. And so, yeah. So that's why I think, once I got, my boots on the ground, then yeah, I have to keep going. Can't stop. It's lifelong mission.
That's what makes your story so powerful and gives such light to the world and shining a light on bullying is that you were grieved, deeply grieved, but you were able to take that grief and not let it destroy you or the people around you, that you took that grief. Everybody has to grieve in that circumstance. But once you took your grief and you're making the world a better place. So thank you for that. Because
Thank you.
not everybody's able to do that. I've seen that for sure.
I
So
try.
thank you.
And yeah,
Yeah.
also, we have the book on Amazon, No Bullying in the Building. Okay.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah.
Tell us about the book. Yes.
Okay, hear this. This is the book, No Bullying in the Building. Shine a light on bullying. The Vernon Edins Jr. It doesn't say the Vernon Edins Jr. story on here. Everything is not the Vernon Edins Jr. story, but it is. Okay. Okay. But it's to raise awareness, help kids understand the seriousness of bullying. Because, some kids, they commit suicide. I just hate a person. Not, I just dislike a person that makes another person feel bad in any type of way about themselves. And so I have another book coming out. This one is physical bullying. So I'm doing a series. The next one will be cyber.
What are some of the biggest disconnects you've seen between what school districts say and what they actually do to protect our kids?
I was just about to say safety. Not enough communication. I would say the school tells us one thing and doesn't, they're not accountable. They protect more themselves than they do the children and the parents and the families and the teachers and the teachers. And I say that because of what happened, when Vernon was murdered. His Miss Lockhart, his teacher, his prior year teacher, held him until he died. She prayed over him, but she had went and told the school district what was going on. Okay, they ignored her. She's an employee there. They ignored her. They ignored the children. They ignored the parents. So yeah, I would say the communication, and I would say safety for everyone.
The movie is Run. It's
Yeah.
coming out. If she needs some help, if you know
Yes.
somebody who wants to fund the movie,
Okay.
please reach out to the Vernon Eddins Jr. Foundation.
Yes.
She's doing amazing work. She has an amazing journey from her pain to power and purpose. And so we deeply appreciate that. Thank you, Angelique, for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you. The website is vernonslight.org, VERNONS light.org.
All right. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so very much. I appreciate you.
Welcome to Turning Back the Clock, a new segment here on Pamela Price Unfiltered. As we watch the wheels of justice being turned backwards in Alameda County, we recognize that this is just an echo and a reflection of the national crisis that we are living in. Clearly, Trump and the MAGA agenda are taking hold in Alameda County. And so it's important that we take a hard look at what the national politics is and how it's impacting all of us. This is not just politics, it's people's lives. Use of executive orders to concentrate presidential power, making government appointments based on personal loyalty and political privilege, massive tax cuts for the wealthy, attacking labor unions and workers, increasing severe punishment for addicts and for other crimes, fueling mass incarceration, targeting immigrants, women and people of color. If you are not part of the 1%, you are on your own in Trump's America. Trump's second term is dragging us back to the days of Ronald Reagan, who ran and won on the exact same theme: make America great again. So let's break it down on education. First, Trump is working to dismantle the Department of Education. In March, he signed an executive order directing the Department of Education to shut itself down. The Department of Education was created in 1979 to protect equal access to quality education. Ending it rolls back generations of civil rights progress, and especially for Black, Brown, and low income students, it has a devastating impact. Ending the Department of Education and undermining education in this country is a long term conservative goal of Project 2025 and the roadmap back to a time that we were all suffering. So, what's at stake? Federal civil rights enforcement, gone. Title IX enforcement, gone. Support for disabled students, students with disabilities and special needs, gone. Oversight of student loans, transferred or ended entirely. Let's be clear. This is not about local control. The attacks on education are about defunding justice in our communities and in our classrooms. Next up, school discipline and guns. In April, Trump reinstated what he calls, quote, common sense discipline policies. But what that really means is zero tolerance for our children that need support, children who act out of trauma, more suspensions and more expulsions, especially for Black and Brown students and disabled students. At the same time, his administration is pushing for laws to arm teachers. You heard that right, teachers, guns in the classrooms. But research has shown and common sense tells us that arming staff will not stop violence. It won't stop school shootings. What it does is escalate violence. It elevates the power of a gun and it turns schools into war zones. Instead of counselors and support, Trump wants militarization. He wants metal detectors and handguns. That's not school safety. Trump's third target, labor unions and workers. In March, he signed an executive order trying to ban collective bargaining for federal workers, including teachers, postal workers, healthcare providers, and more. Let's be honest, this is not about saving money or cutting costs. This is about silencing people inside the government who can fight for justice, who can tell us what they're doing, who will blow the whistle, who serve working families. People whose loyalty is to the Constitution of the United States and not to a president who can't even really spell Constitution. If it sounds familiar, it should. This is the Reagan playbook. This is 1981 when Ronald Reagan attacked the air traffic controllers and tried to break the labor movement and gutted union power for decades. This isn't reform, this is retaliation. And finally, let's talk about food in schools for our children. Trump's latest cuts expand the work requirements for SNAP, a program, the food stamp program that makes millions, provides support to millions of Americans. And under Trump's executive orders and his moves, he would make millions of Americans ineligible for food. The justification, he calls it ending welfare dependency. But what's the truth of the matter? Kids will suffer when school lunch programs lose funding and summer meal programs are discontinued just at the moment when they need it the most. Food banks and pantries are overwhelmed. We need additional support from the government just to feed our children. Add to this troubling narrative, you have a Republican Congressman, Rich McCormick, who says that children should work to afford their school lunches. Let's look at it.
You're telling me that kids who stay at home instead of going to work at Burger King and McDonald's during the summer should stay at home and get their free lunch instead of going to work? I think we need to have a top-down review.
I think you're painting a
think
lot
about
of these
where
kids
kids
with a
need to
broad
actually
brush.
be.
I would say that's not necessarily a fair assessment of all of the.
This MAGA perspective shifts the responsibility of child hunger onto the children themselves, ignoring the challenges that working parents face, ignoring systemic issues that impact different communities, ignoring the role of government to ensure the well-being of its youngest and most vulnerable residents. In the richest country on earth, no child should go hungry. Trump's agenda is making food a privilege and not a right. Donald Trump isn't just turning back the clock, he's dragging us back into a dark chapter of our history. These policies don't serve the people, they serve power. And the rollback of education, workers' rights, and food justice, that's not just political, that's personal, especially for Black and Brown communities, for low-income communities, for single mothers, for seniors, for working families just trying to survive. So we're going to keep telling the truth, loud, unapologetically. We're going to call out Donald Trump and his MAGA minions every single week on Pamela Price Unfiltered, because once you see what's happening, you can't unsee it. This is Pamela Price Unfiltered. Today's story is about how an entire community stood up against bullying and racism. Vernon Eddins' murder in 2007 was the dramatic and horrific outcome of a series of bullying incidents that targeted young African American people in Union City. From 2009 to 2011, I represented 6 families and 12 young people who were traumatized by either witnessing or knowing about the murder of Vernon Eddins and the incidents that led up to his death. For years, Black families in Union City were subjected to harassment, racist threats, targeted taunts, and physical assaults. Young people, children, were shot at while waiting at the bus stop or while walking to or from school. What the community described to me in 2009 and then testified to during the summer of 2010 was a campaign of terror running through the streets and the parks of Union City, Union Landing, and ultimately the schools. We sued the New Haven Unified School District and the Union City Police Department. The case against the police department was ultimately dismissed based on the legal principle that the police do not have a duty to protect anyone. Let me say that clearly for the people in the back. The police have no legal duty to protect anyone. As long as the police did not create the danger to you, they do not have a responsibility to protect you. That sounds very different from protect and serve, doesn't it? But that is the law and the rule that applies in this country and the reality. In our case, the police clearly did not protect Vernon Eddins or any of the other children who were with him when he was shot, and they were also threatened with death on the day that Vernon was killed. Fortunately, we were able to settle our claims against the school district for a substantial sum of money that was then able to fund and help many of the children go to college or otherwise move away from Union City. What did it take, though, for those parents to sue the school district? A lot. Time and tenacity are a requirement in any legal fight. We see that demanded over and over again when fighting for our kids. Another case where the community came together to fight for kids was in Marin County. In 1999, we sued the Novato Unified School District when a group of white students greeted the visiting basketball team from Marin City with a chant that included the N-word. The court ultimately dismissed that case because the law required us to prove that the school administration was deliberately indifferent, that there was a systemic denial of equal access to an educational program or activity, and that the district's response to the type of racial harassment was clearly unreasonable. I also remember the case of John B., a young man living in a small town with his mother who was harassed and bullied at school because the other students thought that he was gay. He was different, and they used his difference to turn students against him. Even though his mother found me and hired me and we settled the case, the family ultimately had to move out of the little small town where they lived because of the dangers that they faced in the community. One of my signature cases is Nicole M. versus Martinez Unified School District. Nicole M. was sexually harassed at a middle school in Martinez. For 2 years, male students at the school repeatedly sexually harassed her and other female students, belittling them with gross sexual comments and gestures, and that was commonplace and pervasive throughout the school. Her mother complained, and the district failed her. She ultimately had to move her child to a different school district. The case, however, established that a school district can, and its administrators can, be legally responsible for harassment suffered in a case of peer-to-peer harassment. So what are the lessons learned? Number one, the worst kinds of trauma for kids that they suffer at school are based on race, gender, disability, and sexual orientation. Number two, school districts are protected by law from most claims and often slow to act to protect our kids. Number three, parents should not hesitate to lean into the law and push with their legal rights on behalf of their kids. Number four, accountability requires time, tenacity, and courage, and collective action by parents, advocates, and community leaders to hold the district accountable and force the district to take measures to protect our kids. Kids absolutely need to feel safe and be safe in school in order to thrive and to learn. Everyone has a part to play in keeping our kids safe and making sure that kids are taught how to resolve conflicts, how to respect each other, how to accept differences, how to reject the twisted values of male dominance and white superiority. This is how we create a future, a better world for all of our children in the future. Thanks for tuning in to Pamela Price Unfiltered. And please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to become a paid subscriber to my Substack channel to get the weekly word from Pamela Price Unfiltered. Your support keeps the conversation raw and unfiltered. And you can listen to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts.